All right, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about slope, midpoint, and distance. This is lesson 3, part of unit 1. So part of this might be new to you. And we're going to go through finding the slope between 2 points, the midpoint between 2 points, and the distance between 2 points. I say that this assignment will have, or that this unit will have an assignment on Delta Math. We're going to discuss that in class on Thursday, the 5th of September. Exactly how you can sign on, how you can use it, and how you can do that assignment. We'll all go down to the computer lab and figure it out. So slope is the first one we're going to talk about, and it's the easiest one and the one that you absolutely have seen before. Slope is often thought of as rise over run. It's the amount a straight line rises over how much it runs. You might see this with roofing as pitch. So for example, when they're talking about the pitch of a roof, they're talking about how much it rises compared to how much it runs. So if it's like a 2-5, it would rise for 2 feet for every 5 feet of run. There's an equation for this. Make sure that you have this equation written down. The equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in this case, you have 2 points. One point is going to be x1, y1. The other point is going to be x2, y2. Slope will always be a fraction. If you have a 0 in the numerator, the number on top, the whole thing turns into 0. And if there's a 0 in the denominator, the bottom, the result is not 0. It's undefined. And there's a reason for that we're going to discuss in class, but you can't divide by 0. So let's talk about midpoint and distance here. The midpoint is the middle point between two other points. You can think of this as the average of the 2 points. So you guys at this point in time should know pretty well how to find the average of 2 points. So midpoint, you take the two x's, add them together, x1 plus x2, divide by 2, and then do the same thing for the y's. So you're finding the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So think of that word mid as meaning average. Midpoint is always going to be an xy coordinate. So where slope is a fraction, 1/2, 2/3, 5, midpoint is always going to be something comma something. So -2 comma 1, 0.5 comma -15.5, something like that. So find the average of the x's, average of the y's. Think of that as the midpoint, and it's always going to be an actual coordinate. Let's talk about distance. The distance between 2 points can be found using this formula here. And the formula is distance is equal to the square root of, and then inside the square root, x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared. This formula you might not have gotten to in Algebra 1. It's a little bit more complex, but I promise you it's really not that bad to use. So let's take a look at some examples. The first example we're going to look at is, let's take one set of points. So given the points 3, 4, and -3, 12, let's find the slope, the midpoint, and the distance. If you want to try this yourself, go ahead and pause the video here and give it a try. If you're not brave enough to try it yourself, no worries. We'll do it together right now. So for the slope, you're going to do the y part of the second coordinate, which is 12, minus the y part of the first coordinate, which is 4, and that's in the numerator, 12 minus 4. So the numerator is 8. For the denominator, you're going to do the x part of the second. So since you did 12 minus 4 for the y part, you have to do -3 minus 3. And that minus is baked into it, but the -3 is part of the -3. So -3 minus 3 is -6. 8 over -6 can simplify to just -4/3. So if you have a fraction like this, if one of the two numbers is negative, the whole thing's negative. But if they're both negative, the whole thing's positive. So 8 over -6 is -4/3. All right, let's look at midpoint. So again, for midpoint, you're going to do the average. So you're going to add the two x's together, 3 plus -3, and then divide by how many there are, which is 2. So 3 plus -3 is 0. 0 divided by 2 gives you an x coordinate of 0 for the midpoint. For the y part, you're going to do 4 plus 12, because again, we're finding the average. That's 16 divided by how many there are, which is 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So the midpoint is at 0, 8. Distance. So again, giant square root to start out with, and then inside the square root we've got two sets of parentheses. For the first set of parentheses, we're going to do x2 minus x1, so negative 3 minus 3, and whatever that is squared, plus y2 minus y1, so 12 minus 4, whatever that is squared. So negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6, and then we're going to square that. And then 12 minus 4 is 8, and we're going to square that. Negative 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, 36 and 64 is 100, and the square root of 100 is 10. So the distance between those points is 10. And that's actually the next lesson. So there we go. Slope, midpoint, and distance. Now, I would expect you guys to be kind of okay with slope, maybe okay with midpoint, and distance is the one that I see people having an issue with. So I'm going to try to make sure that I can help you guys as much as possible. Now, when you're using Delta Math for this assignment, you can go to the example option, and it'll show you an example of what you're doing. So if you're kind of confused on how to find the distance, you can click that example, pay attention to it, and then use that. All right? If you have any questions, please let me know. And yeah, let's move on to the next one.